You just let me know. Oh, there it goes. Okay, so if I say we're going to divide fractions, how do we divide fractions? We divide a fraction by multiplying by the reciprocal. What the heck is a reciprocal? Well, it's basically you take your numerator and your denominator and you flip it upside down. So if you look at this example lower here, okay? If you look at the example lower, you should see that I have division is really multiplying by the reciprocal when we're dealing with fractions. So you kept the first fraction or first number the same. It never is going to change. It's going to be 6. Never flip it. And then you're going to change your division into multiplication because we know just from that last Smartboard slide that if I divide by 2 or multiply, which I use this, multiply by a half, it means the exact same thing. So using a reciprocal, this is really 2 over 1. So if I'm multiplying by the reciprocal, I'm basically taking these 2 and flipping them upside down, and there is that. These give you the same results. That is why this works. This is the why. So if I tell you to take half of 6, you either can divide by 2 or multiply by a half. They will give you the exact same result, okay? If I tell you to do 15 and I want you to take a third of it, you either can do 15 divided by 3 or 15 times a third. What are you still going to get for both of those? 5. Both of those are going to give you 5 as the result. So that is why when you multiply by the reciprocal or just dividing by the opposite of what it was, you still get the same answer. So let's look at the first example here. So do remember that word reciprocal. It's a very, very important word. So if I say to find the reciprocal of each, without Mrs. Edwards showing you the first one, anybody want to volunteer? Or actually, let's do this just for privacy issues. Can anybody willing to go ahead and type in, what would the reciprocal of 5 look like? What would that look like? What would be the reciprocal of 5? Go ahead and see. All right, I got an answer here. Okay, well, you're killing it. Okay, yes, it is 1/5. Okay, do the next one. Improper is okay for reciprocals because we need it improper. So what would be the answer for number 2? What would 3/4 reciprocal look like? Okay. I'm seeing 4/3, correct. By the way, if you're not understanding why this is this, remember this is 5 over 1 and we flip it. However, what would the third one look like? I want to see if anybody can get it. What would the third one look like if I want to take the reciprocal of a mixed number? So I have 2 and 1/3, and I need to flip it. I'm interested. Remember, improper is okay. I only got 2 people right so far. Okay. All right. So I agree with that. You first got a lot of you did this, right? I agree. However, did you flip it? Did you flip that? No, that's still this. So for my people who did write 3/7, you got it right. So once you change it, you then have to flip it. Because see how this is improper? This is just, all this is saying, guys, is this is equal to this. This is now the flipping. Does that make sense? So you have to do a little extra step. I have kids all the time go, oh, it's like, like they just mess these numbers around and just think it's right. Now, and a lot of you need to be careful that you make sure you take that extra step and flip it. Because you just did, this is an easy question that you shouldn't move. Shouldn't miss, because it's just, you know how to fix it, but then don't forget to flip it because it is a reciprocal, okay? All right, so typically I would have you guys at this time, if you were in here, you'd be going up to the board and doing these problems or at your, or online, but we're gonna, since I don't have anybody here, we're gonna go to this actual example. So when dividing again, we're gonna keep the first fraction and multiply by the reciprocal. So let's do this one as example number 1. So the first fraction, you're allowed to write it like that. That hasn't changed. So you keep this one. So this is going to stay 9/1. You never flip it, ever. You don't move it around. You leave it alone. Don't do anything else with it. Leave it alone. Then what do? You're going to multiply by the reciprocal. So flip it, which is 2/1. So therefore, the answer is, you got it, 18. Correct. 18. That's just like that board problem. The first one we did, this is 9 feet. And I'm going to cut it into half pieces. Okay, I'm going to end up having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. And then I'm cutting these in half. So basically, I am getting 18 pieces. Correct.
Real quick, this is
Yeah.
something you can always do is cut it in pieces that way and cut it.
You're right. You're right. Mr. Henry did have a good point. Remember how I just did that 9 pieces? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He did bring up a good point. I could cut it in half this way. And isn't that 18? It's a good point. That is a good point. I like that. So, all right. So let's look at these two, and then we'll look at some word problems. So this one is just, I'm throwing it in there. This is a fraction divided by a fraction. So we do the same thing. We keep the first fraction. So this one, you don't do anything with it. So equals, I'm sorry, this is example number 2. You keep the first and you multiply by the flip. 8 or the reciprocal. Now, I got 8/12, which is correct. But who could tell me a better answer? Which one would be what would be the best answer you could put down that would make Miss Edwards smile even more? Interesting. I'm getting all answers all over the place. I only have 2 so far, right? 3. Okay. All right. What could you divide by at least, Addison? What did you divide the numerator and the denominator by? Addie, since your hand is up.
4. I divide them by 4.
Correct. I'm so glad none of you wrote it as a mixed number. There we go. That is that's an improvement. Although I don't think you guys did that very often. I think you now understand. So if I divide them both by 4, I get 2/3. Now, there is a majority of you had 2/3, but some of you had 3/4. And I'm just a little concerned how you got nothing times 3 is 8. That's a whole number. So some kids maybe didn't know it was 4, because remember, you could at least cut it in half. There's cutting it in half, dividing it by 2, or multiplying by half. You get 4/6, and then they're both even again, which is 2/3. This is just a faster way. This still gives you the same result. Okay? All right. Let's go ahead and do this one. I want you to do this one now and type your final answer in the chat. 2/3 divided by 24. Now remember, again, this is a whole number. So go ahead and give me your final answer in simplest form. And I do believe this one can be simplified. Yes. Keep the first fraction and then multiply by the reciprocal. Because they're not writing it out. They're trying to do it in their head. You need to write it out. Don't do it in your head. You're going to make a mistake. ICMO is the only one right so far. Write it out. Write it out. So you should be keeping the first. Then you are multiplying by the reciprocal. This is 1/24. Okay. Then you get 2/72. Why are you guys saying it's 36 full amounts? Is that a full? 2 kids out of 72, that's over 1. Not 36, because you guys are rushing and not thinking about it logically. That's 2 people out of 72 people. That's not a whole. So you should be simplifying, not doing long division. So what can you do? Cut it in half, cut it in half. Ask yourself, is my numerator smaller than my denominator? If it is, you need to simplify. If your numerator is bigger than your denominator, you should be dividing like long division. So for those people who did get 1/36, you are correct. For those who got 36, you thought of it backwards, you thought of it upside down. You don't reflip it, you leave it alone. Okay? What will Miss Edwards put as an option? 36, 136. I will put those ones that are commonly you're gonna put. Okay, so be careful with that. For those people who got it wrong, just make sure you understand why, the why. You don't have to tell me that you understand, you can, but I just want to make sure you understand why it's not a full 36 and it's 136. Okay. All right, so let's do it again because I don't feel 100% comfortable. So let's go ahead and have you do. Let's see if we can do better on this one. I just want you to do number 1. Only number 1. I would like you to, in simplest form or as a mixed number, divide 5 into 3/4. 5 divided by 3/4. So keep the first, multiply by the reciprocal. Keep the first, multiply by the reciprocal. Do not try to do it all in your head. I'm not more impressed. I'm more impressed when you do all your steps so I can see where your brain's going. It's great that you can do it up in your head, but chances are you will make a mistake. As a mixed number, I like that number though. Make it a mixed number. Okay, come on, beautiful. I think that's what I got last year, not really quite sure. If you want to do the other one, you may do so. You do not have to, but I can tell you if you're right for the second one. Okay, looking like we're going to do a little better here. So let me start it out and then those other people can finish. So keep the first, because this is really over 1, so I don't flip that one. Never flip the first one. Multiply by the reciprocal, 4/3. So if you got 20/3, you're almost there. But since this is over a whole, that means 20 something out of 3, and put them in 3 groups. I'm gonna have more than one person in a group, right? More than one person. So 3 goes into 20, and yes, a lot of you said 6, and then 18, subtract. So 6 2/3 is correct. 6 2/3. Okay, keep the first. So the second. Okay. Okay. All right. If you did the second one, if you happen to do it, if you got 9/10, that is correct. 9/10 is correct. And that is simplified. That was already simplified. I think before you got 30, was it 36/40? Yes, 36/40, which is 9/10, correct. Okay. All right, I'm gonna look at a few word problems, and these are the ones, I'm gonna tell you right now, you better really focus, because this is where 9 times out of 10, kids know how to do those problems, but then get stuck on this, okay? So, Jaden has an 8-foot long piece of wood that he wants to cut and to build a yard Jenga set. You know, like the big Jenga? Need one of those, it's so expensive. Giant Jenga. I do have giant tic-tac-toe, not tic-tac-toe, Yahtzee. I have a giant Yahtzee. But like it's like a pain because like I don't want to ruin it. Like so if you throw it on the ground and like scratch anyways.
Giant Jenga.
Wow, that was a tangent. Okay, back here. All right, so it has an 8-foot long piece of wood. So let's think of this as 8 feet. Sometimes drawing a picture will help. Okay, and he wants to cut it. And he's going to have each piece is going to be 5/6 of a foot long. what is the greatest number of pieces that he's going to be able to use? So he's going to cut it up, and we don't know how many he's going to have, but each of these are going to be 5/6 of a foot, so a little bit less than a foot. So if you think about it, our answer is going to be larger than 8 because I'm not cutting the full foot out. So what's the first number? So this is where kids get confused. Does the 8 go first or does the 5/6 go first? What are you starting with? What do you start with? And then you're going to divide by the pieces or the length or the section or the group. What is the number that you start with? Think about it. Are you starting with the pieces and going to the board? Or you start with the board and cut it into pieces? So if you said you're thinking 8 cut into 5/6 pieces, or 5/6 of a foot, you are correct. You are correct. So what do? We keep the first, multiply by the reciprocal. I do agree that you get 48 over 5, which is, did you remember? 48, which is 9 3/5. Agree. But answer this question. How many pieces will he be able to use in the real world? How many pieces will he be able to use in the real world? Correct. Correct. 9, right? You are not going to be able 9 full pieces. Because think about it, and anytime you do a project, you always have like scrap wood or whatever. So you have like this little piece right here that's not big enough, right? Think about it that way. So you can use 9 full pieces. Does that make sense? And yes, you would have 3/5 of scrap wood left over. Correct. Good job. Okay. Let's look at, I think I have 2 more, maybe? Yeah. Okay. These are, by the way, these are some of my old students' names and never changed them. Okay, Camille wants to cut a board into 3 equal pieces. There's a lot of keywords that we know with division. Cut the board into 3 equal pieces. The board is 5/8 of a foot, feet long, whatever. Okay, how long will each piece be? Remember how in the question, it was asking how long will one piece be? Remember how we knew that was a division in the question part? Because that's like a rate in a sense, but not technically for this one. But so this is the question I have to ask you. What are you going to start with? In the chat, tell me which number you're going to start with. Are you going to start with 3 and then divide it by 5/8? Or are you going to start with 5/8 and divide it into 3? Think about what are you starting with, and you're cutting it into something, pieces, whatever. Okay, let's see what we're saying. 5/8. Yes, you start with 5/8 because you got to start with the board, right? You got to start with the board. It's okay that the board is not a foot long. I don't know why you would have 5/8 of a foot of a board, but hey, this is how math problems work. Like, why does?
It's left over from Chuck E. Cheese.
Did you ever hear about that one thing? You probably heard this. Bob has 40 chocolate bars. Bob ate 35 chocolate bars. How many what does Bob have now? Bob has diabetes because he just ate a lot of chocolate bars. But again, doesn't make any sense. Or like, why would somebody have 40 watermelons in the back of their car? That's just how sometimes it works. So you are right. So yes, you are starting with 5/8 and you are cutting it into 3. And so 5/8, you should get a fraction that is less than 1 because you already started out with less than 1. Multiply, now this is like this, multiply by the reciprocal, and you cannot simplify it. So if you got this, you are correct. Because think about it, I didn't even start out with a full foot, so why would I have anything bigger than that? So Luckily, Bob does not have diabetes. We're not gonna say that he has it. Because that isn't something to joke about, but, okay. Last one, and I want you to answer this one on your own. I'm gonna read it to you, and I wanna see if you can successfully tell me, this answer here. So it says, a box of Lucky Charms has 14, now I made a mistake. I was supposed to put 14 cups, and I'm gonna make sure I fix that. But I forgot to do it last period. 14 cups of cereal. So pretend I can get 14 cups out of this, okay? A serving of cereal is 3/4 of a cup. That means that's really what you guys are supposed to eat. Not take the cereal box and go shaky, shaky, shaky. Oh, it's not filled. Shaky, shaky, shaky. Technically, you're about to have like 3/4 to a cup of cereal, which most of us go, that's not enough. So how many servings of cereal can you get out of the box? So think about here. How many servings of cereal can you get out of the box of Lucky Charms? So I'm going to tell you right now, you will get a mixed number, and then tell me how many full servings can you get out of there, because we need to have full servings, right? Okay. Oh my goodness. You guys are just crazy. Okay, answer my questions. Okay. 3/4 of a cup. Pick one, go ahead and answer the problem. I want the final answer. You are correct with that part, though. That is what you start with. You need a final answer. I'm gonna give you a couple seconds to finish that, because this is where you guys would be up at the board or whatever else. Close. I think you're off a smidgen. Your second digit, I think you're off. I agree with the 1, but the 7 should be, if you thought of the wrong multiple. 4 times 7 is 28. Okay, so it looks like for those people who are paying attention are giving me 18 2/3. So how many full servings can you get? Now type that in. How many full servings can you get? So you got 18 2/3. That sounds right. Think about it. You're not eating a full cup, right? So you're gonna get more than 14. So that should make sense. So you should get 18 full servings. So there'll be a little bit left that maybe, you can sprinkle on your cereal for that time. Now we know in the real world, probably can't get no 14 servings out of that. I know in my household, the way my husband eats cereal, it's like a big, huge bowl. Like, dude, that's so much sugar. Anyway, not my point.
Don't be like Bob.
Don't be like Bob, okay? All right, so this is basically the end. So typically at this point, you guys, how do we know which one to flip? Okay. All right, so hold on. Okay, so Addison, you have to think about what are you starting out with first? You're starting out with 14, right? And you're cutting it into 3/4 cups. You never flip this one. And then you flip the second. So it's keep the first, multiply by the reciprocal. You have to know you're starting out with 14. You're starting out with 14 full cups. Okay, does that help? All right, so at this point, you guys know what to do. So this is how typically you would go. You've done now, instead of watching a video, there's no video to watch because we were the video. Okay, you can actually stop that.